right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for showing up tonight. Appreciate you coming out and spending some time with us here as we go through our FY 25-26 financial plan. So my name is Stephen Erno. I'm the general manager here at Sun City West and have been here since the beginning of September. It's been awesome being here. I've really appreciated the support and the warm welcomes that I've received, and happy to be here presenting the first, for me at least, the first financial plan since being here. So again, thanks for coming. Really appreciate you all being here. It's fantastic to see such a great crowd. So to kind of kick us off, just want to talk a little bit about a little history. So back in 1978, Del Webb, they broke ground on Sun City West. And at that time, the goal was they were creating an active adult community that was looking to have a perfect mix of amenities and activities. And I think they nailed it, frankly. And, we still continue to this day to be able to enjoy what was the vision back then. Here we are 47 years later, and thanks to our current governing board and their leadership and the governing board from the past years, we continue to be able to offer all these amazing activities and that lifestyle opportunities. We're blessed to have these 4 beautiful recreation centers, 7 meticulously maintained golf courses, really just state-of-the-art bowling center, private library. I mean, the performance theater, over 90 charter clubs. I mean, it really is just countless opportunities for things to do and amenities and activities to join in. And we're really fortunate to have all that and be able to offer that to our members and our residents. And with all that, though, that takes a significant amount of resources to operate. You think about all those things that are out there and what it takes to run basically a 24/7 operation. We have folks that are working overnight to get things ready for you all the next morning to make sure that things are clean and ready to go. So it really is a significant operation which takes good planning and a good financial plan to make that happen. We've got over 26,000 owner members, over 1,100 associate members, and over 1,700 tenant and landlord members, which is a big part of us. Of course, 90% of that is made up with those owner members. And what's really cool is how we continue to rank in the top 10 throughout the United States. And here we are, number 4. And we don't solicit this from Retire Better Now. This is their determination that we are number 4 in the country of top U.S. or communities in the U.S. to retire in. That's a big deal. That's a lot. When you think about all the different options that folks have, places to retire to and move to and live in. So really, really just a cool thing that we have here. A really unique situation. One of the things that when I was brought on, the governing board had asked me to do was to work on developing a strategic plan. And we did do that. We brought on a consultant. The consultant was brought on for $24,500. To be clear on that, what they did was basically worked with the staff, worked with the governing board to determine what are some of the priorities, what are the things they would like to get accomplished, and to work through a plan that would take us, operational plan for the next 1 to 3 years. And part of that was working in addition to develop and revise our mission and vision statements. I'm not going to read these to you, but you can see them up here. And this again was working with the consultant, working with the staff and with the governing board to work through these to really make sure that we are headed in the right direction, that we all have the same mission and vision as we move forward. We also worked on our core values. What are those things? And we had previously, I don't know, it was 8 or 10 core values, which obviously was too much, but we really refined those into what are our core values? What are those things that we look at? And we landed on that we are community-centered. We operate with integrity, excellence, innovation, always looking for those ways to be more innovative, more efficient, and stewardship, making sure that we are being good stewards of your member dues and that we are making sure that that you all are enjoying today, generations in the future can enjoy, just like in the past. Those folks made sure that the community was in a place for you to enjoy as well. So the strategic plan has these main focus areas. So the fiscal sustainability, innovative, high-performing organization, making sure that we are on looking at the recreation charter clubs and leisure interests, our infrastructure, and then a high-quality member experience. Out of that, through working with the consultant and working with the governing board, we landed on 19 items during this coming fiscal year. So by June 30th, we will have work through those 19 items. And then there's another 19 for FY27, and then there's 2 currently for FY28. So those are all by June 30th of those fiscal years to complete those. And the strategic plan is not something that's put it together and put it on a shelf. This is a living document. Each year, I will work with the governing board to, and this is what's great, the consultants even talk about the fact that they have, as they say, a horrible business model because they create a document that you're able to not have to bring them back again. So we're able to take this plan and each year work with them, with the governing board at that time, update them on our progress of the different items on there, the different action items, and work with the governing board to determine, okay, here's the things we've accomplished, here's the status of the ones that are still in progress, and what would you like to add for the next coming 1 to 3 years. So again, this will be a living document that will be updated and reviewed every year with the governing board as we go forward. So with that, just a quick intro on that, and I'm going to turn it over to Cliff, who's kind of run us through the details of the budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm really pleased to see the crowd in here. It's really nice to see engagement, and we're excited about it. So thank you for showing up, and thank you for being here. I'm Cliff Swan. I'm the CFO. Been here for it'll be 4 years in August at the Rec Centers of Sun City West. Started out as the accounting manager and worked up to the CFO role. And this is the 4th budget that I've been part of. And I got to thank all the management team and all the operations team, as well as the Budget and Finance Committee and all the other committees, golf, sports pavilion, charter clubs, and properties, as well as the governing board to help us shape this budget. I do want to give one note on the strategic plan, and that is part of the strategic plan, the items that come out of the strategic plan get budgeted at some point in time. And so they go through the process of the budget process and approvals, whether they be operating items or whether they're capital improvement items in the community. So all the approvals and all the things that happen in the strategic plan are approved by the governing board and therefore the community as we complete them and continue to put those deliverables out there. So just wanted to do that. And in this budget, as Mr. Erno said, there are 19 of those deliverables. So let's talk about the budget. So in the budget, the budget goals, look, the primary takeaway here is to keep the place looking nice. It's 46 years old, okay? And it's just a wonderful gem in the Phoenix Valley. And there'll never be another one. 7 golf courses, all the amenities, 4 rec centers. There'll never be another one of these. And I don't have to tell you guys, I love working here, but you got to love living here. I'm sure you do. It's just a wonderful place. And so our primary goal in every budget year is to keep the place looking nice. As well as, at the same time, we've got to not only keep the amenities that we have looking nice, but we have to assess them and keep them vibrant. And part of the strategic plan is to continue to enhance them so that we stay competitive with other communities. And so this budget does that as well. And then finally, to do that, we have a reserve fund that we have to fund. And that takes a little piece of a lot of different levers that we can pull in terms of revenue. And this budget does that as well. So let's talk about the services. So within these service items, if you take the rec centers, there's various services within those service items. So at rec centers, we have pools and mini golf and all the different things that you can do here, lawn bowling, tennis, pickleball. But these are the services that we provide, and to do that, we have an operating budget and we have a capital improvement budget. So every year we put that together for the next year and have the governing board. First of all, we go to all the committees and we bubble up a lot of information just from the community themselves. But operationally, the service levels and the services that we provide haven't changed much in 46 years. They're very consistent. What we do here and what we deliver. And then the level of service that's expected, we want to make sure we keep that level. So, and as far as the operations go, we've got it pretty dialed in. We feel like we got it pretty dialed in. And then when it comes to the capital improvement budget, we have a just tremendous reserve study that helps us manage that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is basically the budget ecosystem that we have. So when we put a budget together, there's things that we have to address in a budget that are just simply out of our control. And minimum wage increases and inflation are two of those things that impact us, and they don't just impact us in one way. If we were just, a recreation facility that had membership and CCNRs, it'd be pretty specific in terms of the impacts of inflation. We've got many different business lines, from golf to bowling to just all the various things that we provide here. All of those are subjected in many different ways to inflation, to the cost of fuel, to just many things that are just simply out of our control. And being a service business, labor is our biggest expense. And when we are impacted by minimum wage, that has a collateral effect all the way up. So, but these are two things that really impact us. And you can see it's been a little wacky for the last 10 years. It really has, 10, 12 years. So again, I talked about it, 64% of our overall expense structure, we are in the service business. That's going to be our biggest expense by far. Just like any service business, that's going to be, in their business models, that 64% of their expense is going to be attributable to labor. We're not making widgets. We're providing service, so that takes manpower. 10% is utilities. So all the buildings, 53 buildings, all the golf courses, we pump all our own water, all the natural gas that's used to heat the pools, all of those things. Utilities is our second largest expense. So let's talk a little bit about labor, our largest expense. So we've got 4 divisions here at the association. Those divisions are General and Administrative Division. We've got the Recreation Division. We got the Golf Division. We have the Sports Pavilion Division. Within those divisions, we have 33 departments. And then, so those 33 departments, it takes management. It takes supervisors. There's various lines of business, different things, different tasks, different certifications, all the different things that you have to be and to run a business. It takes manpower to do that. We've got 93 unique positions, meaning job descriptions. So when we put our employees together, we have 490 employees, 200 are full-time, 290 are part-time and seasonal employees. When we budget for our employees, we go through a process every year. We sit down with each manager and go through each position and talk about the need for that position. And the need's based on the services that are being provided, and then the service at the service levels we want to provide them. We put that budget together based on what we need to provide all of those services. And when we do that, we have approximately 624,000 hours in this budget to accomplish those things. But when we do that, we put job descriptions together for each employee so that they know exactly what their job is and what they have to deliver. And that's how we kind of structure our employees. So I talked about 624,000 hours. There's people right now in the administrative offices emptying trash cans and cleaning bathrooms. And then when the rec centers close down tonight, there's a night crew that comes in and does the same thing, cleans the facility, empties the trash, empties the garbage, cleans the pools. There's constant 24/7 manpower here at the association. So we've got the 4 divisions I talked about earlier. I kind of split up golf ops and golf maintenance just so that you can see it's by far our largest. It's 44% of our overall hours. Of our hours go to golf, and so it's a large chunk of what we do. But this community has 7 golf courses. I mean, this is a golf course community. I mean, this is what we are, and so it's a very large part of what we do. It also generates $12 million in revenue to help pay for itself, which is incredible. It's just incredible that we can do that, provide that amenity, and almost have it pay for itself, which is pretty incredible. So 33% of our hours go into recreation. We'll talk about each department that's in these divisions because I have some charts up here I want to show you. But 6% in sports pavilion and 17% in general administrative. So when we talk about those 490 employees, that equates to approximately 300 FTEs. And here you could see So when we talk about FTEs, we're talking about full-time equivalents. So if you take that 624,000 hours and divide it by 2080, which is the amount of hours a full-time employee would work at 40 hours a week, that creates an FTE. So there's 300 FTEs in this budget when you take those 490 employees and that 624,000 hours that they're budgeted. That's what it comes out to in terms of the budget. And you can see what we've budgeted from 2022 out to 2026 for our full-time equivalents. So let's talk about it. So we have a management team, okay? As I said, many different moving parts, many different lines of business. You can see it takes a large team to manage all those various things, okay? Yes, there are people that wear many hats. We have managers that cross divisions and manage other things as well, but it takes a big staff to do that. And here you can see the staff and then all the people that roll up to each staff member in this management team. Quick note, we're going to be providing this presentation on the website along with some other attachments of the budget that you'll be able to reference, go back to and print and look at and reference at any point in time. But let's talk about the administrative division. So the administrative division has 60 positions in it and 54 FTEs. All right, within the administrative division, we have our IT department. We've got our general services officer who oversees the news and media and PR. And then we have our HR director that oversees the HR staff. We have Russ Boston, our facilities manager, who oversees the facilities maintenance, so all the janitors and everything that happens here at all the rec centers. He manages that department along with the facilities maintenance people. Excuse me, not all the janitors. That's in recreation. But anyway, but all the maintenance people that handle all the maintenance of the buildings and the structures around here that aren't golf related. Mr. Boston manages that, and that is in the general administrative department. And then we have the finance, the most important department of any business. That's in this department as well. And then finally, we've got our membership and CCNRs in the general administrative division. 54 FTEs there. So looking at the rec division. So in recreation, obviously we have our rec centers, and Sabrina, the facilities operation manager, oversees all the staff at those areas. But within this division, we also have our clubs and events staff. We've got our library staff, and then landscape maintenance, which Todd oversees, is also in the rec division. Okay, so these are all the 94 FTEs, 166 positions in the recreation division. So what are these people doing, right? It's like, why do we have all these people? Well, they're working. There's a lot to do, okay? There's a lot to do. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that are doing, but one of the things that we do here is, obviously, we have all these amenities and all these different things from fitness to racquetball to pools, billiards. So I wanted to put some data together to show you how busy we are. And so when you look at the activity that's happening, keep in mind, this is non-club activity. Okay, so this is just activities that members are coming to the pools, they're playing bocce. This is non-club related bocce. The library is a very, very well-used amenity, but over 500,000 check-ins from just our members, not club related, checking into our facilities in fiscal year 2024. That's pretty extensive. That's a lot of, hi, how are you doing today? Good to see you. Can I see your rec card? There's a lot of interactions happening there. All service level takes people to do that, but it's good. That's why we're here. People should be using the amenities. So when we look at the facilities themselves and we count distinct member facility usage, you can see here what our largest used facilities are. RH Johnson is the largest. Okay, there's quite a few amenities here, but the pool is the showpiece of the community and it's well used. But over 12,000 unique people come to RH Johnson throughout the year. And approximately 22,000 have visited unique visits at all of these facilities. One that always stands out to me is the library. It's just incredible. The 8,800 distinct members in our community use the library, which is just incredible. Like I said, it's just unreal. So I talked about the scheduling and event staff. So if you think about it, you think about all the events that we put on here, they handle those events. But every time a room needs to be booked at any facility, that room needs to get booked through the scheduling department. There's over 6,400 bookings in fiscal year 2024 for rooms and events that we took care of operationally. Not only booking them and making sure it was scheduled, but sending the staff there to set up, to tear down, and set up again, and clean, and do all of those things. There's a lot of staff involved with all of this. It's not just a scheduling department. It's all of the rec centers, all of the janitors, all of that. So there's a ton of staff involved with all of this activity as well. All right, so golf. Golf's a pretty busy division for us as well. So we break golf up into two kind of subdivisions because we like to look at it that way. If you look at golf, the golf operations, which Pat oversees, Patrick O'Hare, he's got 149 positions equating to 49 FTEs. So if you look at that and you spread it out over 7 courses, it's about 7 FTEs per golf course. So if you think about that, a golf course is open from 6 a.m. to sometimes 5:30, sometimes later. It just kind of depends on, how much daylight you have. And they're open 7 days a week. It's got 7 people per golf course. Granted, we don't have large pro shops and banquet halls and things like that, but we run golf very efficiently operationally, okay? We do that with a good staff. We do have closures. We do have things that happen. So yes, this is spread out over the year. Keep that in mind. But the idea is that we're running them pretty efficiently. In fact, we did a comparison with surrounding communities, and we were approximately 3 FTEs less per golf course than on average of the communities that are around us, when you took the average of all those communities had. So we feel very good about the staff that we have there, and we feel like we're doing it very efficiently on the operations side. If we look at golf maintenance division, Todd, who also sees landscaping in the rec division, don't forget, but Todd has 86 people, or 87 FTEs when you count the overtime that's worked there. That's approximately 11 people per golf course when you factor out some of the kind of management team. But when you look at golf industry average, and we just got a PGA report, and they're just always, they always write in the report. Todd, has that report been posted yet on the website? Okay, it's posted on the website. Take a look at it. Read the section that they talk about in terms of labor and staff and what it takes. They're calling for 13 to 16 people on a semi-private golf course like us. And we have 11 in the budget, but we consistently don't get 11 because we have turnover in that area. It's a very tough job, and it's a hard job to fill. So we feel like we work wonders with that. If you ask Todd, hey, how's it going? Todd can tell you what blade of grass on what green needs water. Like, he knows it that much, and he'll talk to us about all the things that he's not getting done. He doesn't say, wow, it looks really good, and no, he goes, well, it looks okay, but, we're really trying to get this done over there, and we're always trying to, we got some cleanups to do over here. So anyway, we're very busy in that. We do have to subcontract some of that stuff out because we don't have the manpower that we put in the budget to do the things that we need to do on the payroll side. So sometimes we have to bring in outside sources to handle some of that stuff. But we do the best that we can. But when we put the budget together for these different departments, these are positions that we need. We can get by if we have turnover and we have empty seats, but that's not ideal, and it doesn't get everything done that we need to get done, and it doesn't get it done. It gets it done less efficiently, actually. So because you have overtime and you get people that just get worn out, and then you have to hire people to come in and do it. So it's a balance, but I wanted to point that out. So how many rounds of golf do we do a year? Since 23, we've done over 320,000 rounds of golf. In fact, there's a year, if you go back 1 year in 22, I believe we did 333. So we've kind of reset the bar on golf. We used to budget 280,000 rounds of golf when I first got here. And so golf is nationally has increased, but for us, it really has too. So we're excited about that. but we're very busy in golf. And 82% of our golf comes from our members. But we do fortunately have some non-member golf. And the beautiful thing about that is, A, they pay more, and B, we'd still have 7 golf courses whether they came here or not. So if they're coming here and they're feeding us and they're taking all the leftover stuff that we offer to all our members first, okay, and they're taking the leftover rounds, every round of golf, every dollar we generate from non-members in golf, it just helps us keep golf rates down and dues down. So it's a wonderful thing, and it's a nice benefit to have those non-members here. So, but anyway, about 60,000 rounds from non-members and about 260 from our members. Finally, last but not least, is Mr. Zarek and his team in the sports pavilion. They do a great job. He runs the sports pavilion, which also has our billiards room in there, as well as Lizard Acres, and it's a great venue. And we'll talk about the bowling center here in a little bit in the capital budget for this year. So when we look at our wages, we have to look at our salary. We do salary wage, a salary wage survey yearly. And part of the reason for doing that is we have to know and understand what people are paid in certain positions. So we have this resource, it's called Pay Factors, and we access it through Employers Council. But Pay Factors is great because it's a national database that has various, I don't know how many thousands of positions in it. So we go through their positions and align them with similar positions that we have here. And we can get pretty close on job descriptions. We actually line them not on the title, but actually on the job description. It's pretty crazy. So we take those 93 positions that unique positions that I talked about earlier, and we find those in that survey. And so we compare ourselves to those. And when we do that, we find that we're 12% below the average in terms of pay. Okay, so I would say that this is an area. In certain areas, we have to get a little better in, and that's part of this budget as well. But overall, a job is about more than what you make. It really is. But it's an important part. But it's not the only thing. There's also the benefit structure, and then there's just the overall culture. And we've got a wonderful culture here. We've got people that appreciate the work that we do here. So our customers are very appreciative. And so it's a great place to work, and we feel like we do a good job. But this is something we have to watch because we have to worry about our retention and employee retention, because we all know employee retention is key. It can get very expensive to replace people. And when you replace people, you got to go to the market. And when you're going to the market and you're already 12% below the average, guess what? You're paying more. You're paying more for people. And that's just a fact, okay? So we have to deal with that. But we do a pretty good job. I think we do a pretty good job. But we do have to budget some things to get better in some areas. But overall, we're doing a pretty good job. We've got great long tenured people here. We're twice the average of tenure for employees here at the association. So we feel like we're doing a pretty good job. We've got a great culture, and we've got a great team. But when we talk about employee competition and retention, I was standing in line waiting for my rice bowl at Panda Express. I took this picture with my phone. Okay, this is what they're paying for people serving up food and rice bowls, $18.50 to $20.50 an hour. They're taking that little scooper and they're putting it in a bowl. Okay, that's what those people make. We can't compete against that. We really can't. We're lucky because we have a community that can just walk out of their front door and come to work and be here in 2 minutes. And so that's, again, it's not all about pay. There's also other factors in there, and that's one of our factors. But we have to compete against this in one manner or another. If you look at Buc-ee's, they're opening up in the West Valley. They're paying a assistant general manager $125,000 plus. And guess what? If you don't use your vacation, you can cash it out, use it, or roll it. So they've got their benefits packages are very aggressive in here. If you look at the details on some of this stuff, it's very aggressive. But we have to compete against this as well when we have to go outside the community, which a lot of the positions we do have to go outside the communities because there's positions that people here just don't want to work, and I don't blame them. They're retired. They already worked hard for their living, but we've got some hard working positions that we've got to fill, that we've got to compete with this stuff. So not to mention when minimum wage increases, we've got the impacts of that and all the collateral damage that happens up the ladder when that happens with compression. So just wanted to point that out so that we have to deal with that. So let's talk about the budget. So in this budget, we've got some notables when it comes to our wages. So we've budgeted an overall 4% increase in this budget for wages and for salaries and wages, okay, and taxes, salaries, wages, and taxes. That 4%, that's going to be used to address cost of living increases, to address minimum wage increases, to address merit increases for employees who have gone above and beyond. So an additional amount to the cost of living increase, a merit on top of that, if it's warranted. Not all employees get it. And then finally, also to address, I already talked about minimum wage. So that's what it's going to be a pool of funds. It's effective January of 2026. That's when we put our wage increases in. The process for doing that is we go through an annual evaluation process. It's not the only evaluation we do with our employees, but we do an annual evaluation, and we grade our employees, and then in January, that'll help us determine what increase they're going to get, and then January 1, that increase goes into effect, just like minimum wage and all the other things. But that's what that 4% is for. And then finally, we got some workers' comp insurance increase. If you want to learn about our workers' comp, you can go back to the late February meeting, budget and finance meeting. You can learn about what we're doing there. We're on the right track. We've got 1 year in our EMOD 2022 coming off of COVID that everybody had a bad year that year because the COVID year, nobody had a bad year because nobody was working. But once we flush that year out, we'll be looking pretty good with our EMOD, which it could bring our insurance rates down for workers' comp, actually. So we'll see what happens as we get to that point. But we're trending in the right direction. And then we've got a health insurance increase. All insurances have increased. Everybody in this room, if you have auto insurance or home insurance, or you carry any kind of insurance has just gone bat crap crazy. It just has. Okay. So we've got some great people that we work with that help us bid that out, and we look at the plan, we make changes within the plan, we kind of drive some behaviors to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck for our health insurance. But we're in this budget is an 8% increase in health insurance premiums. So let's talk about the other operating expenses that are non-payroll. We have an overall 3% increase. That doesn't mean that we took our expenses and we added 3% to everything and said, there's our budget. That's not what happened at all in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Every line item was with every manager was gone through. Okay. And then specific questions asking what's going on with this expense. Are you going to need it? What do you need? What don't you need? What's going to increase? What's not going to increase? So we went through those line item descriptions. And then these are some of the impactful things that have happened within the budget. Some of these items are these are things that we're going to have to do next year, repairs and maintenance wise, that we didn't have to do this year, but they need to be done. Some of those things are that. There's some reductions for things that we did this year that we're not going to have to do next year. And then there's just some increases simply because the cost of that stuff is going up. And again, remember, various lines of businesses that we do here. We're not one industry, like one thing that we know that thing, that inflation is impacting that thing, this amount. We have many things, and they all have different things that impact them. So we'll talk about that. So we've got a $55,000 increase budgeted for electric, gas, water, and sewer. If you were watching the budget last year, we were behind because we didn't budget enough for the utilities, and we got killed with those that hot fall and hot summer that we had. And then we had a cold winter to follow that up. but it's prudent to put an increase in there. If we don't have that increase, that'll be savings, okay? And those funds will stay in the reserve account eventually. Well, they'll get back to the reserve account. So, but we have a $55,000 increase. Again, our largest expense, 10% of our overall expenses on 31 million. Pretty significant expense. You put a 3% increase on that. It's 55 grand. Okay, so $80,000 reduction. We did a phone project this year to go over the internet with our phone system, and that's actually going to create a savings for us. That investment was a little over $100,000 between the savings this year and the savings next year. It's already paid for, and we'll have those savings moving forward from that time period forward. But $80,000 savings in this fiscal year budget, in the 25-26 fiscal year budget for that phone system upgrade. It was a great thing to do. It was great, Katie and her team, to put that together. $15,000 increase in trash removal. So there's some golf course cleanup that has to happen. I was talking with the finance director in Sun City, and they spent $600,000 last year cleaning out dead trees off their golf courses. $600,000. Okay? We don't have to do that because we keep up on it. But there are some extra charges that we're going to incur next year because there's some additional kind of deep cleanup, so to speak, that we have to do that is warranted, and because of the hot summers that we've had, that we got to go in and just kind of do some cleanup, and that's going to create some additional cost for us in trash removal. It's also, you'll see down in the repairs and maintenance category, $80,000 increase, because we're not going to be able to do all that in-house. We don't have the staff to do it in-house, but it has to be done. Okay, so we got to put that in the budget. So that's increasing our budget on that line item in the repairs and maintenance by $80,000. There's a $52,000 increase, mainly in repairs and maintenance for buildings, because we've got a $30,000 painting project on El Mirage. If you've seen that wall, if any of you live over there, it needs to be painted. It's looking pretty bad. So we've got to do it, and that's our responsibility. So we're gonna do that in this budget for next year. But that's $30,000, and that's what's driving that $52,000 increase in that area year over year. There's a $17,500 reduction in our parking lot seal and stripes. So that's just, we have a smaller group of parking lots that we're going to seal and stripe next year, so that we'll save a little bit of money there year over year in striping. In the landscape maintenance category, we've got a $49,000 increase. This is there's some drain tile work and French drains that need to be done on the fairways and cart paths that need to be done next year, and Todd's budgeting that. Most of that will be done in-house, but there is some of that's going to be done outsourced, and then there's some supplies and equipment and things that we got to do to take care of that as well. So that's a $49,000 increase. We've got a $27,000 decrease in our sprinkler repairs. Every time we do an irrigation project, we get to whatever sprinkler heads that are on that project that we replace with new, we get to repurpose, all those old sprinkler heads. Okay, so that saves us spending money on sprinkler heads and other golf courses because we're able to repurpose those. And then every new sprinkler head that comes as part of that irrigation project gets a 10-year warranty, which is wonderful. So all those sprinkler heads have 10-year warranties on them. So that creates a savings as well. So that's a good byproduct as well of an irrigation project. So that'll save us 27 grand we anticipate next year. And then the chemicals and fertilizers, we're anticipating an increase there. It's gonna be a $20,000 increase just based on the pricing that we're hearing. We think we're gonna get for our golf course chemicals and fertilizers. The good news is what we're hearing on grass seed is that it's gonna be flat. So there's no increase in grass seed year over year for us, which again is a huge expense for us. So any percent on top of approximately, I think we spend approximately $600,000 on grass seed. So if we can avoid any increase there, that's wonderful. So let's talk about equipment. There's some equipment that we need to replace in our library and our sports pavilion. If you've been in the billiards room, it needs a little bit of work. We put some time and energy into that this year, but some of the equipment in there, the fans, and some of the things in the sports pavilion just needs a little bit of love. So we're going to show it a little bit of love because it deserves it, and it's a big investment for us, that sports pavilion. So it's become a showpiece with the bowling alley, especially after the budget that's being proposed, the things that we're going to do in there in this budget. But so there's some things that need to be done there. Library, same thing. We've got some just old tables that just don't work for us. They're round tables, they're bulky, they're heavy. You can't do, we're having more and more group activities over there. You can't do group activities with round tables, really. You need square tables, and then they need to be able to be moved easily. And then there's some partitions and things we need to put up to try to section off different things for different types of groups and things that we're doing in there to make that space really usable for our community and clubs and things like that, and events and things that we put on there. So we need to show that a little bit of love too, but 19,000 increase there. On to taxes and insurance. We've got, we'll be doing a presentation at the May 20th Budget and Finance Committee meeting on our property and casualty insurance. Again, like I said, everybody knows insurance has gone up. We haven't even really had any claims. You'll see what our claims history, it's wonderful. We've done a great job, not to pat ourselves on the back, but just to say that what's driving the insurance increases isn't anything that we're doing wrong. I walked around with a guy from Philly last year with Russ, and he just raved. He said we're like the poster child of retirement communities. If you go into our wood shop, it's immaculate. You look at the different electrical rooms and things that we have all kept properly. And I just said, I don't know if you know this. So I'm speaking from the finance perspective. The reason why, part of the main reason why everything is kept up really well is because of our reserve study and how we take care of things and replace things. And I said that goes a long way. Parking lots, doing our parking lots to make sure they're smooth, curbing, all the things that we do here go a long way to keep our insurance rates down. They really do. And that you can get killed on that. And speaking of Sun City, 53% increase in their property and casualty insurance. 53%. It was like $300,000 they got this year. Incredible. So, we do a good job and you know what? It's a testament to the budget process. It really is. All the things that we do here to keep the place up and keep it nice is really returns on the back end. It really does, because you can get really bogged down with some of these other increases in costs. And it really shows on our insurance premium. So, but 8%, it's a significant, it's 55,000 because it's 8% of a big number, but it's still pretty good. So operating expenses, 48,000 increase, and there's some service contracts and IT enhancements. So I'll talk about one of them that's kind of near and dear to me. We've got a gentleman here named Pete Finelli. He's been here for six years, and Pete's retiring. He does our reserve. He's our reserve analyst, and he does a wonderful job with that. It's really, since he's been here, kind of taken that on and really made it what it is today. It's an incredible tool that we have. Well, there's like this mad scientist spreadsheet that Pete has that really is, almost proprietary. It's hard to, kind of manage that. But we see an opportunity here for an efficiency. So Pete's retiring at the end of this fiscal year, and we're not going to replace his position. We're going to employ a software package called Smart Properties, and we're in the process of converting to that. We're almost done. We've got some little wrinkles we're trying to iron out, but that'll be an increase in expense here at about 12 to 14,000 a year. Just kind of depends how many assets we have on that reserve study. But we're not going to replace Pete's position. We're going to take the rest of his duties and spread them out amongst the finance team. But that's creating an efficiency. It says 48,000 there, but that additional 14,000, which is part of that, will create an efficiency on our FTEs. It is built in this budget. So there's a savings there. But that's an example of one of the things. But there's other kind of service contracts that we're looking at, IT enhancements to provide better customer experience for our customers, as well as to make us more efficient. $46,000 reduction. There's a security system project that we're in the middle of completing this year. That was in this year's budget. That's not going to be in next year's budget. So year over year, that's creating a savings of $46,000. We've got legal and professional services. There's some professional services that we use this year that we're not using next year, creating savings of $15,000. And then finally, down in the employee-related category, I told Terry and I, we're accountants, so we're kind of finicky about things, and things bother us, and we talk about it because we think we're cool like that. But one of the things that bothers us is this category called employee-related category, because it makes it seem like it's like, these are things that are kind of discretionary, and they're, you don't need to do them. We just do them to be nice. Well, no. Employee related are things like safety expenses and employee training and mileage reimbursement when they use their personal car to go do something for the company, and we have to reimburse them miles. Those are the things that go into employee related. Uniforms. All of our customers, all of our members, like all of our employees that are customer facing, all need to have Rec Center Sun City West shirts with logos on them. That's uniforms. All of our people out working in the elements, and mechanics and greenskeepers, and those people, they all need to have uniforms. So these aren't things really that are discretionary. They're things that are needed, and they go into this category. So the funny thing is, we really can't think of anything else to call it. So it annoys us, but we don't really know what to call it. But anyway, it's still that's the category. So we have things in there, and costs are going up in those areas. So that's creating increases. So in the employee-related category, we'll have a $6,000 increase for our uniforms. The cost of shirts are increasing, and it's creating. There's a lot of shirts that we buy for our staff, and so that cost is going up, as well as a $7,000 increase in our employee development. One of the things that Mr. Erno has kind of put on the docket for us is we have employees that need to be trained, and they need to be trained properly, and they need to be having all the right certifications and making sure that it's driving all of the service levels that we have here. So we need to make sure. So there's some things in the budget that are creating a $7,000 increase in there. $7,000 increase over 490 employees, very minimal when it comes to employee development, but a needed thing for us. So, and then a $4,000 increase in just our safety supplies that we have, the Band-Aids and the safety kits that we have all over the different facilities that we have. The cost of those supplies are just flat out going up. So that's built in this budget. So, all right, we're going to talk a little bit about cost management highlights. So attached to this presentation, there's a multi-page listing of some cost management savings that will attach to this that you'll have access to. But I want to talk about some of those things, and I kind of put some bullet points up here to talk about those. Also attached to this will be a mainline detail of each one of the expense categories. So what rolls up into utilities, what rolls up into landscape maintenance, what rolls up into repairs and maintenance. There'll be that in there as well, so you can see kind of the detail behind those expense categories, what's in there. And you'll see a 3-year run of that, so that'll be attached as well. So feel free to take a look at that. But some of the things that we do here, it's kind of built. It's funny. It's in our strategic plan to be efficient and to maximize our revenue opportunities and things like that. So it's really always been part of our culture, but even more so now with Mr. Erno coming aboard. We're really out front and center on cost management things, and what are we doing to save the association money. And it's little things too. I mean, it can go all the way down. We just had a postage meter, facts and findings, so we can get a favorable price on our postage meter. So instead of paying, $500 a month, we're paying $180 something a month because we got into a 5-year contract on that. So we're able to maximize contract based on the contract term, but our policy only allows us to sign a 1-year contract, so we have to go to the governing board for anything over a year. But anyway, so we recently did a uniform contract as well, same thing. So we're trying to create savings anywhere possible that we can. One of those things is getting competitive bids. Policy says anything over 5,000, we have to have competitive bids. Well, we do it for not only that, we do it under 5,000, all the way down to toners. We'll price out toners on a daily basis. In the finance department, Terry said, she went in the manager's meeting and said, nobody's buying toners anymore. Finance is doing all toner purchasing. And that's what we've done. We've aligned, got consistent across the association with our printers, and now we know what toners we need everywhere, and all the toner purchases go through finance. And we're literally costing out toner in 3 different areas because the toner prices change every day in each one of these areas between Amazon, Staples, Glendale Office Supply. And we're pricing and then buying toner every day or when it's needed. And we're pricing that. So we're pricing those things out, and we're trying to do the best that we can to get the best price that we can, also using buying power. Todd, for example, this past year, he purchased most of his chemicals. I had budgeted him. We put the budget together. We get the budget, right? We get it approved. Well, we got to put it over 12 months. Well, Todd came to me and he said, I need to spend all my chemical purchase because I could save $80,000 if I buy it all right now. And I said, okay, let's do it. So we do that. We use our buying power to get the best prices that we can, that are budgeted, of course, but that's what we do. So that's an example of that. Our fixed asset management system, I'm just talking about one thing on this reserve. Well, I'll say 2 things. First, there's $1.2 million in reassessed assets from our reserve study that were in to be replaced this year that we've moved to a later year, or we flat out eliminated, meaning they're not even going to come up in a later year because we don't need those assets anymore. They're lifed out. We don't need them. We don't need to replace them. There's a dump truck. I'll talk about it later on. But our reserve study helps us do that. We know what's coming up every year, so we assess those things and we move them down. And in this budget, we moved down $1.2 million. But one of the big savings in our reserve study is an irrigation project. An irrigation project right now, an irrigation at a golf course that currently exists that isn't new, has a life of 35 years. 35 years. So 35 years ago, it was built. We put the irrigation system in. It's coming due. We have to replace it. We're replacing it with 100-year pipe, these irrigation projects. So what we're doing is those irrigation projects get done. The Grandview irrigation project that we completed already, that was on at 35 years. Now that's now on double. It's on at 70 years. So we're getting twice the life out of that irrigation project. So that was $7 million approximately $7 million in 2023. That project was. That would be inflated for 35 years at $7 million at 35 years would be inflated 3% per year on that. And it would have to be done 35 years down the road. Well, it doesn't have to be done 35 years down the road now. It has 70 years. So we're getting twice the life on that irrigation project that we were getting before. That's a tremendous savings to the association. So that's an example. Just one example, another example of our fixed asset management and our reserve study. We talked about leveraging technology earlier. We're always looking to do that. Taking advantage of interest rates and our idle operating cash. We talk about a reserve fund a lot, but we have a separate bank account used to operate. So that's what we operate our budget out of every year. Okay. Well, that's a lot of times that's idle cash just sitting there. So we invest that, especially with what treasuries are right now and short-term investments at 4+%. But that generates $250,000 a year for us this year. It'll be actually would be closer to 300 this year. So that's just one thing that we could take advantage of in terms of a revenue source that we're not always going to have because interest rates aren't always going to be that, but they are now, and we're doing that. I neglected to talk about this one yesterday at the public forum, but this is a huge thing, and this is the partnerships that we have with Prides and Friends of the Library. Friends of the Library have a $150,000 operating budget that they pay for. All the books and all the things that go on at the library, they pay for it. We, members, do not have to come out of pocket with their dues to pay for that. That's tremendous. What's even better than that is they volunteer 22,000 hours. 22,000 hours of volunteer hours at the library for staffing the library that we don't have to pay. $15 an hour, 300. I mean, that's crazy. And that saves the association money. So those partnerships, Prides, all the work that they do in the community, granted, that is Maricopa County's land, but it needs to look nice. We don't want to be driving around here with medians and things that don't look it, but Prides take care of that. with all the volunteer hours that they put in. That's a tremendous savings. It's a great partnership with the community. So I encourage you, go look at the cost it'll be an attachment. Go take a look at, there's a bunch of items in there that you'll see. And just to give you some context and perspective on what we're doing here, some of the things are new that we instated this year. Some of those things that we've instated and continue to do to save the association money. It doesn't get a lot of press. We're kind of, we don't like to really pat ourselves on the back. I'm a humble guy. I don't, Steven, sometimes gets out there, but we really do try and do things to save the association money, and to be more efficient. And we honestly need to do a better job of talking about that. And that's one of the things that we've talked about as a management team, and we'll continue to work on that. But we do really get after it. Okay, so let's talk about increases. So we're in this budget, we proposed some increases to handle these 3% increase and 4% in payroll. Okay, so member dues is one of those areas. Member dues is the only, I'll continue to say this, the only guaranteed source of revenue that we have. Anybody that's on a title pays a due. Okay, and we're an HOA, we're a planned community, but we're an HOA. That means that we can lien titles when people don't pay their dues. It's a guaranteed source of revenue for us, flat out. And it's the largest, by far, source of revenue for us. Even if you take APF, so you take our total revenue that we have for both budgets, it's the largest area. And it's the area that we need to look at every year. We need to look at that. If we have increases in expenses, we have to look at that. It's the right thing to do. Okay? So we're proposing a $28 increase. It's a 4.9% increase. We take a portion of our dues and put that into a reserve fund allocation every year to go into our reserve fund to help pay for the capital improvements that happen here. And those are capital improvements that are $5,000 or more and last at least 5 years. Okay? 7.5%. The average for associations for dues going into their reserve fund is 15 to 40%. If you go to Grand, they're mandated 25% of their dues goes in their reserve fund. Okay? Our reserve fund is so robust, and plus the APF fees that we get allow us to keep that percentage way down. I mean, we're way down below average. The lowest average is 15, and it goes up to 40. Our neighbors, it's 25% of their dues. 7.5%. We're blessed that we have APF fees, and we're blessed that we have a robust reserve fund that has been planned for appropriately over the last 40 years. And anyway, so that's in this budget, $28 dues increase. And we don't get the full impact of that $28. Any dues increase that gets put in, we only get half of that because people's dues come up throughout the year. So if you paid your dues in May, you're not going to get a dues increase until next May, even though we instated that dues increase in July. So we get the impact of half of that in the first year. The next year we get the full impact. Okay, but for the first year on a dues increase, we only get half of the impact of that. When I say we, the association only gets half of the impact of that dues increase. Now, golf, I said 40%, I don't think I said that, but 40% is of our overall revenue, operating revenue comes from golf, 12 million. Impressive. So we got some increases in here for golf because we have some increases in costs for golf. And golf is always, golf as a community and the golf committee, since I've been here, has always been open to paying for the increases in golf that happen. And they understand that, okay? So golf, we budgeted 320,000 rounds. Again, we budgeted 320 for this year. We're about 3,000 rounds off through March in golf, okay? But we rallied a little bit. We're rallying a little bit in April. But we got 320,000 rounds of golf in this budget. We're budgeting a $6 increase for non-members during peak season and then a $3 increase during transition in summer for our non-members who come here and golf. That's the public and our member guests. We got a $1 increase to our members who golf during peak season and transition season, that's October through May. And then we're going to increase the golf. We have 2 golf cards, the Unlimited card and the Twilight card. that you don't pay a greens fee, you don't pay a discounted rate because you have to go, you pay for the card itself. So we're increasing those cards by $150 and then $50 for the Twilight card. And then finally, just the cost of snacks has gone up. We have to put a 25-cent increase we're getting killed on some of our snacks, but we're going to put a 25-cent increase on the price of snacks. And that, believe it or not, that actually generates quite a bit of coin in there. But and then on bowling, bowling is an amenity that actually returns a positive cash flow operationally for us to the tune of about $100,000 a year, which is pretty impressive. And that said, we've got $1.2 million in improvements in the bowling center in this budget. That's coming off of last year doing new lanes and ball returns. So there's a lot of capital improvement, and there's a lot of facilities involved with bowling as well. So we're going to put an increase in there. They didn't have an increase last year in their rates, so we're putting an increase this year, and that'll help cover some of those, help return additional funds to the reserve fund to cover the purchases, the capital purchases that we've done and are continuing to do in the bowling center. And then these are the rate increases here. You can take a look at it. We also attach a budget packet which has all the rate increases year over year, this year versus next year in the budget. So you can look at that and see all those rate increases. All right. We talked about the interest income on the operating cash because we have an irrigation project and we have to fund that project through our operating account until year end when we get our audit, and then we pull out of the reserve fund. But we have to use our operating cash for that, which is going to deplete our operating cash. So we're going to have less cash in our operating account to invest. So we'll have $100,000 less in interest income, but we'll still have $157,000 in interest income we're anticipating. Now, the good thing is those monies for that golf irrigation project are going to be sitting in the reserve fund making money. So they will be making money. They just won't be making money in the operating account. It'll be in the reserve fund until that gets trued up. But $157,000 there. And then APFs, we're proposing a $200 increase in APFs, and we're assuming 1,100 title transfers. We're on pace for that this year. I will say March was a little off for us. April seems to be rallying for us, so we'll see. We'll continue to monitor that, but we're on pace for 1,100 this year, and that APF revenue generates approximately $5.9 million, which keeps dues down. All right, so the total operating budget. These are the expense categories. I have the expense category detail attached. Feel free to go through it, but a 4% overall increase in expenses. The proposed increases generating an additional 4% gives us a balanced budget. And then in the capital section, overall total capital related of $2,073,000. All right, so we're going to talk about cash, and we're going to talk about the reserve fund a little later. But before we do that, let's talk about our capital improvement, and I'll come back up here and talk about what the cash impact is, because that's really what's the impact of cash, right? What's going to happen in my bank account when it's all said and done? I'll talk about that next. But I'm going to turn it over to Dave Johnson, and he's going to talk about our capital improvement budget.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Johnson, the new Capital Projects Manager. I've been here a little over 300 hours, literally work hours. That's appropriate because that's if you figured out how much time would be spent from a general contractor and their trade partners and the estimators putting together a budget of $5 to $6 million for a commercial construction bid. That's about how many hours you'd have. And the reason that's appropriate is because I was curious how many hours we've spent. And so we've had 8 months to get to this point. We've got, of course, one governing board, 5 committees, and we've had 64 meetings. And if you just took half of the time of those meetings, you'd end up with 3,000 hours. So we've spent 6,000 hours meeting, talking about all this. Well, meeting, but then 3,000 hours of that, we've been focused on the budget and the capital projects. And I just like, that's a 10-to-1 ratio. For every hour that I would spend as an estimator project manager on a realistic project that I came from before I started this job, I worked on a $6 million emergency generator project for Goodyear Hospital. And so we're talking real stuff. You can actually build a critical emergency system with the amount of effort that went into that with 300 hours. So why do we spend 3,000? And I got the 3,000 because I just guessed at 8 people per committee and governing board. That's 48 people times 64 meetings, and you get to 3,000 hours. So obviously I've been learning a lot since I've been here. What I used to do was I created a commodity. But this is building a community. And it's so dramatically different. That's why it takes a 10-to-1 ratio to have something that's consistently of a good quality. And that's the aim, the quality of life for Sun City West. And I'm going to be doing some more research here soon on Del Webb because he seems like a pretty interesting guy. That we got the benefit of him having done other, communities, and he wrote the policies that we build the community by, policies that we maintain the community by, that we advance and improve the community by. He did it with respect to the importance you put on moving here. So you think back to when you were planning for your retirement, that was a big decision. And you really thought long and hard about it, spent a lot of time planning. And then you made that decision and here you are. So Del Webb thought about that and he made a process that respects the magnitude of your decision to be here today, to live in this community. So we take that to heart. We really do. So these pages reflect 58 different budget line items that add up to about $5.8 million that we've spent 3,000 hours going through. And every one of those hours has been open to the public and it's been recorded. And we have done that in the best interest of the community. And the policy makes sure we do. We can't really deviate and have an agenda as a community and as a governing board and as committees. We all have to work together. So we have got 58 total budget line items that add up to the, oh, I said 5.8, my bad. Well, I saved 300,000 already. We'll put that in the reserve fund. So 5.5 million is all those capital projects. They range from new projects, new capital projects, and repair and replacement, and golf and landscape. And then, of course, we have our allowance fund that Cliff will cover when we get to that slide. We'll highlight the capital budget for the items that are above 50 grand. This one's the master plan. There's, if you just take a moment, read through the bullet points, there's a lot of investigation that goes into the gathering of data. I think I liked a comment yesterday best from one of the community members who said he was a scientist, and making a decision, you have to gather data. That's really what this is, and it's gathering the kind of data to make a good, solid decision. And it's a placeholder. So they're not saying that's going to be the exact cost. We're not saying we have a blank check. It's placeholder, and it should be enough. We got a paint job at Palm Ridge coming up for $75,000. Cost a little bit to paint the ceilings in there and the walls, and of course you got to empty the pools, build scaffolding. It's more than just a paint job, so we got to get a general contractor out there to take care of that project. I guess while I wasn't here 39 days ago, sometime before that, some trees were removed at Beardsley because of the age and condition. New ones are coming, but they won't provide much shade, so we're going to strategically place 4 shades on the mini golf course at Beardsley. I've also learned recently that if you don't change out your aerobic equipment or your cardio equipment every 5 years, then you'll all be standing in line for one piece at some morning, and we don't want that. So we replace them every 5 years. And obviously there is the interim times where we have to maintain and repair. We take care of those, but that means that you're consistently going to have one thing that it seems like we use the most. We looked at, remember all that graph with all those red lines? Well, actually, one line went all the way across the top. That was fitness. So it's important, right? We keep them in good shape. And we want to be able to keep you in good shape. Whoops, my bad. So yeah, we were notified by the manufacturer that the age of 42 of our 60 plus AEDs were needing to be replaced. They were over 10 years old. So we want to make sure that we all got what we need to take care of each other. And now I'll turn it over to Gary. Talk about the sports pavilion.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see, that the pin setters are up for a replacement coming in probably April to May of 2026. It is a huge, huge amount of money, about $30,000 per machine. But the machines we are replacing are over 20 years old, and they have cycled 60 million times each machine. It is a massive amount of games that have been bowled on this equipment. So we have definitely got our money's worth out of these pin setters. The new ones are more cost efficient. I hope they will save us some utilities, and they are much more friendly to work on. So it's a very exciting proposition. And they look like, I've seen them in Las Vegas, and they are absolutely amazing and incredible, the upgrades that they have provided. So I would assume we will get the same 20 years or longer out of the new ones. So a very exciting time for all of us. The next thing we're looking at is replacing 2 of our oiling machines. The 2 that we have, one is 15 years, one is 8 years, and they have been up and down those lanes almost 50,000 times, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. Parts are becoming very, very hard for us to obtain. They are outdated, and technology has increased so much that replacing one and not the other puts out different lane patterns. And to bowlers, that is, as a golf course with greens, the bowling center is looking for consistency. The best way to obtain that is to buy 2 of the identical like machines so that we always have the same consistent patterns out for all of the bowlers. So those are the 2 things that are over the $50,000 cap. However, there are a lot of other things that are going to be going on in the bowling center also. Foul lights, which we can't even buy parts for. There are gutters and caps and all kinds of different things that are 47 years old and have never, ever been replaced since we put all of this equipment in back in 1979. So a lot of this equipment, the graphics you see on the back where you see the bowling that are up above the pin setters, those are 20 years old. The foul lights, the caps, the gutter system, the way your ball comes back through the machines, all of those subways are original equipment, and they are well beyond their years, and we have got our money's worth for them. So all a very exciting time. It looks like right now, if all of this goes through, we are targeting late April, early May to have all of this installed, and everything will be back running again in June of 2026. Fingers crossed. The machines come from Hungary, and it's a 4-month build, so they will build them in Hungary and ship them across the ocean, and hopefully we will get them in here by April for the install. So all very exciting times, and we're looking forward to getting all of this done because, as Stephen said, it is a world-class facility. I have bowled my entire life, and I can tell you there is nothing like this in Arizona for sure, and very few around the United States. So an exciting opportunity for our bowlers. We also, just for a backdrop, we have 32 leagues that has 3,000 bowlers in the winter, and we are up to 18 leagues in the summertime, which is about 1,500. So it is a very, very busy facility for residents and non-residents both. And it is the finest bowling alley in Arizona, hands down. So excited to have all of these things going, and we're going to try to get them done and smoothly. Plan is to keep half the bowling center open while we do one half, and then switch and do the other half. So we're going to try to keep the place open as best as we can, and very excited to be part of this project. And I'm turning it over to Todd.
Thank you, Gary, and good evening. I'm Todd Patty. I'm the Environmental Services Manager. And I'd like to just review our proposed capital items for landscape and golf maintenance. And we'll start with landscape maintenance. We're proposing to regrass 2 of the 4 lawn bowl greens over here at Johnson in 2026. They are the original greens, 40 years old, and they are very tired. They're worn out. They get a lot of use in the wintertime, a lot of foot traffic. Our staff rolls those greens almost every day, so we really beat down those greens during the winter months. And so they're just, again, they're very old and tired. We would remove the existing grass and then about 4, maybe 8 inches of subsoil or the root zone mix, and then that could be used for another project that we have on our shorelines, and I'll get to that in just a minute. And then we'd regrass those with one of the new Bermuda grasses that's out in the market right now. So we're looking at probably like the Tiff Eagle is one of them that we'd be looking at. It's a very good turf, and I think we'd get 40 years plus out of that variety. As you can see in the picture, the U.S. Open, we had the U.S. Open in last year, and we're looking at hosting the U.S. Open again in 2025. So that's very exciting. So that sounds like that could even continue almost every year. We host that with Sun City, also Sun City Grand, and some other communities. So that's a big event for us on Lawn Bowl. So the cost is $337,459 for both greens. If you want to break that out, it's $167,729 per green. And then our capital improvement projects for golf maintenance, Stardust Irrigation Phase 1, that's the mapping, the GPS, the turf line marking, the permits, all the drawings, designs, and everything. And that is with a new pump station for 536-221. This is similar to what we did over at Echo Mesa, which that project's going on right now, Phase 2. And then we did that over at Grandview in 2023. And we'd start that in July of 2025. Shoreline repair, hardscape. As I mentioned, we can use that material from the lawn bowl and move that over there as backfill behind the walls. This is a water conservation project. We have 41 lakes in our entire system on the 7 golf courses. To date, we've completed 18 of those. And I can tell you from our water usage records, that really helps conserve water. It really does, along with the other projects that we're doing, the new irrigation, turf reduction, new software for the irrigation systems and also the new pump stations. So we have Deer Valley number 18, Desert Trails 14 and 18 at 285 and 295. We'd like to start that. If it's approved, we would start that in June of 2026. And then Car Pass Slurry Seal over at Echo Mesa, we would do this after the company pulls out, after the project. We do have a little bit of damage over there from all the construction work going on. So we do a slurry seal and some patchwork over there for $75,000. And again, that would happen between the completion of the project and overseeding next fall. And then our equipment replacement program that we have, golf maintenance, you can see we have 22 units scheduled for replacement. The average age is about 18 years. They range anywhere from 10 to 31 years. Total replacement cost is $826, $361. And again, if you want to break that out, this is for all 7 golf courses. So if you break it out per golf course, it's $118,000 per course. And we're looking at a 4.5% increase over last year. Just like everything else, prices are going up. So if you want to know what we do with our old equipment, our retired equipment, we take that to a central location, maybe one of our well sites, and then we have our mechanics go over there and they strip the parts off of that equipment that can be used on the equipment on the other golf courses. We're all Toro equipment, so we can use that on the other units. And so what they don't, what's left of that equipment, which isn't very much, we can sell that as scrap, or we have a company that will come in and buy, I call them carcasses. They'll take those off our hands. So we deferred 1 unit, Procore Greens Aerifier for $41,000, and then 1 unit was completely eliminated from the reserve study this year, and that was a Fairway Aerifier for $34,009. And then our utility vehicle replacement for golf maintenance, 7 units scheduled for replacement, 12 years plus on the average age. They range from 12 to 15 years. Total replacement cost is $164,263. And we did eliminate off of the reserve study this year 1 dump truck that we had for $74,648. And then our utility vehicle replacement and equipment for landscape maintenance division, 2 utility carts that like the carry-alls or the Workmans that we use on a daily basis for our guys to get around and do their work. We have 1 walk-behind greens mower that we use over at the Johnson Lawn Bowl, 11 years plus on the age of that equipment. Total replacement cost at $94,177. And we did defer 4 units, a bank mower, a tractor, a utility cart, and also a greens roller for $140,000. And 1 unit out of the landscape was completely eliminated off the reserve study, and that was a bank mower for $54,056. So in total, deferred was $182,000 this year, eliminated $163 for a grand total of $345,831 that was either deferred or eliminated. And I'm going to turn this over to Patrick O'Hara, Golf Operations Manager.
All right. Good evening. As Todd said, I'm Pat O'Hara, Golf Operations Manager. This is the interactive part of the presentation today. I'm going to ask everybody before I get going here. We've got some golfers out there, right? So if we have 7 golf courses, how many would you guess number of carts in our fleets at all 7 golf courses? Well, I'll tell you, because I know that answer. It's 154. Okay, so we have 154 carts that we rent on a daily basis. Add a 21 utility vehicles, my ball pickers, PA carts, custodial carts, that's another 21, so we have 175 carts. If we were to take these 7 golf courses and put them outside of Sun City West and put them in a public environment, I would need 350 carts to run the same operation. Now, the difference is probably most of you have your own golf cart. So I rely on you to bring your cart to be used at the golf course. So we're very limited in 2 things, space to store carts and a number of rental carts that I can rent to your guests or a public play. So that's the challenge we have in golf ops. So going forward with this year we're requesting 30 carts, replacement of 30 carts. I'm replacing 2013s and 2015s. So it's very important for me, with only 154 carts, that all of my carts work and they can go out twice in one day. This is a very profitable part of the golf operations. These carts make their money back. I pay for them in about 3 years, and we make another 6, 8 years worth of profit off each of those carts. So 30 carts, $212,000. Also asking for 7 janitorial carts. So if you play golf, you've got bathrooms out on the golf course. Those get cleaned daily. So I have to have carts that have headlights, a bed and back. They carry all of the janitorial supplies. So I have one at each golf course. As you can see, these carts are as old as 25 years old. Some of these carts I bought used from the posse about 10 years ago. So we try to maximize this, but it's time that we finally get something that is reliable and that we're not spending a lot of money to repair. And then I also have 1 player assistant cart that I'm asking for. So typically our carts last anywhere from 10 to 12 years. So we get a full value out of these golf carts, but it just so happens that it's that time where 7 of them are coming due, 30 of them are coming due, and it's just part of the cart fleet having to repair those and replace those on a timely basis so that we can keep the revenue coming in. So if we rent a cart for $16, and I can't deliver because if you take the 154 carts that I have and divide it by the 7 golf courses, I only have 22 carts on average at each golf course. That means 44 players outside of your private carts can play. And there are days when we have more than that, so we have to turn them twice, or we move carts around to take care of the added outside play. So if we rent a cart for 16 and I can't deliver, I lose a $72 green fee as well. So now that non-rental costs me $90 for not being able to supply a golf cart. And again, we're not adding to the fleet, we're just replacing what we have. Okay. Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you, Pat. I know you guys thought you were done with me, but you're not. So we're going to talk about allowance funds. So every year we put in the capital improvement budget allowance funds, and these are used for unexpected items or that come up throughout the year. These could be from a request from a club. They could be a request come out of a committee that they want to have something that we didn't put in the budget process, or it could simply just be that this year we had 2 water heaters go down, and those water heaters, when we bought them originally, were $2,800, and they're now $5,300. And they're 10 years old. They last about 10 years, at least the ones that we replaced did. So that is now a reserve study item because of inflation. So that kind of happens too. So some things just, if they have a 5-year useful life and they're over $5,000, policy says they get paid for from the reserve fund, and that makes them a capital improvement project. So, but I will say 90% of what hits allowances are items that would be on the reserve study anyway, and therefore would be on a capital budget in a future year. Okay, we just didn't get the life out of it that we thought we would have, and we had to replace it sooner than we thought. And that's what most of the funds and allowance funds are used for. So that's why we have these in the budget. A large item in there would be a well pump. We had the Echo Mesa one go down this year. It was a little over $100,000 to fix the column pipe. Those wells go down 1,000 feet, and there's outside pipe and inside pipe that feed those wells, and then there's a pump down at the bottom. And if something goes wrong, you can scope it, but you really don't know what's going on down there. It's very expensive, and so we have to have funds available to do that for our golf courses. We have 7 wells for our 7 golf courses, and they're old. I mean, the wells were around before the golf courses were. We have wells from the 20s, right, and 30s, from the 30s out there. So the good thing is we don't pay for our water. We do pay to pump it, but we own those water rights, so we're allowed to pump that water, and which is a great resource to the community. So 420,000 in allowance funds. All these capital projects we talked about up here, are funded from the reserve fund per policy. Okay, so that means the reserve fund that we have pays for all of our capital improvement projects. Okay, the other good thing is we have the money. We've been saving up for these items for years. When we put those pin setters in 20 years ago, we knew that in 20 years we would have to replace them, and we set aside money every year to replace those. So we have the funds to do all of this. Okay, and that's the type of planning that goes into every budget. So talked a little bit earlier, and I said we're going to talk about what's the cash impact, because that's really, at the end of the day, what's in my bank account. That's what you want to know. So we have this process. I talked that we fund everything through our operating account, but policy says certain things have to be funded a certain way. Policy also says we have to direct those funds into our reserve fund to pay for them. So after you pay for your operating expenses, whatever's left over from your income goes into your reserve fund. Also, any money that you generate in APF fees goes into your reserve fund directly. Doesn't go to operations. You can't pay operations with APF fees. That goes in the reserve fund, which is for capital improvements. So you have your remaining revenue left over after you complete your year. So if you have savings and expense to budget, or you have additional revenue, golf rounds comes in higher than you thought and you generate more golf revenue, the extra money that's left over by policy goes into the reserve fund. Okay, so now we put a balanced budget together and we take a portion out of our dues to go into the reserve fund. That's how we put the budget together. Okay, so we're partitioning 1.2 million. You see it, estimated reserve fund allocation, 1.2 million in this budget. Last year, we partitioned 1.1 million, 1.151 million. Okay, we partitioned 1.2 million to go in from operations. We're saying that 5.9 million is going to come from APF fees. We're estimating 981,000 investment income, okay, in our reserve fund. Okay, that's going to generate a total of 8.1 million for us. That 8.1 million pays for the capital improvement projects, which are not 5.8 million, 5.5 million in this budget. So what'll happen is we got the cash inflows of 8.1 million, we got the cash outflows for the capital improvement projects of 5.5 million. So we're anticipating that, it's got a pointer on it? Oh, no, it doesn't. We're anticipating that we'll have 2.561 million left over after we pay for our capital projects this year, in this year's budget, that'll go into the reserve fund. Okay? Now, you'll see down at the bottom, so you got your reserve, at the top you have your reserve fund inflows, and then you have your reserve fund outflows, which are the capital improvement projects. You see there are years where we go negative. So when we go negative, that means that we have to pull money out of our reserve fund to put in our operating account. Okay? But in the years where we go positive, meaning we have positive inflows over what we spend, you'll see that we put money back into the reserve fund account. So if you look at this span, there's 53 million in capital improvements over these 5 years. If you add up all those capital, it's about 53 million. Okay? We anticipate over the next 5 years, after we complete this year, that our reserve fund will start out at 28 million and will end at 28 million. Okay? That's pretty impressive after spending 53 million. Okay? Now, how do we know that that 28 million is healthy? Is that a healthy number in our reserve fund? Because we don't, Sun City's got 50 million in their reserve fund. I would venture to say it's not very healthy. But policy says we have to have at least 40% of our fully funded balance in our reserve fund. Okay? And you can see here, the years where the reserve fully funded balance is higher are the years where we don't have large capital spends. So the years of large capital spends are irrigation projects. All right? So We're anticipating being done with irrigation projects in 2035, 10 years from now. We'll have all of the irrigation projects completely finished. We do one every other year, and we anticipate being completely done with those in by 2035. But you could see here the blips on with the fully funded balance percentage are the years where we have large capital spends, and that's due to our irrigation projects. But you could see we're satisfying our policy, which says our fully funded balance has to be at least 40%. Keep in mind, that reserve fund also not only funds all the repair and replacement, it's also for new capital. So anything that we're going to do to enhance or anything that we're going to do to create new amenities here in the association also comes from the reserve fund, right? So we have to make sure that that reserve fund is healthy, and it has been, and we've done prior governing boards, prior operations teams, the communities prior have done the right thing when it comes to the reserve fund, and that's what's put us in the position that we are today. Now, that fully funded balance every year, so think about the fully funded balance. If the cost of the assets in the reserve fund are $115 million, so those 1,400 items, that doesn't include the actual building. It's just all the components of everything that has a 5-year useful life that's over $5,000. It's $115 million in asset value. Our fully funded balance is $62 million. That means we've used up $62 million of that $115 million. That's what that means. So we're 60% used up when it comes to our assets on our reserve study. That's basically what that's saying, okay? When we roll the year forward, we add $5.7 million in use to that fully funded balance automatically. We don't spend another dollar. We don't do anything. It automatically goes up by $5.7 million. We've used it because 1 year has clicked off of it, okay? Not only that, that goes up by $1.9 million. You know why? Because we subject it to 3% inflation. So 5.7 million, 1.9 million. Already that balance from 62 million has gone up by 5.7 and 1.9. We didn't do a thing. We didn't spend a dime. We didn't do anything, and that happened to our reserve fund. That's why we have to make sure that we're feeding that reserve fund, because it continues to increase every year, and we have to keep it at least 40%. When we put a budget together, we have to think about this, okay? We have to. It's part of the process. All right, so let's talk about dues and inflation. I just wanted to give some perspective on this when we talk about dues. So if you look at our percent increases, I went back to 2004. If you take the percentage increases every year for 20 years, the average increase for 20 years, the percent increase, 6% dues increase a year on average. When you take the percent increases for 20 years, 6% is what our dues increases have been for 20 years. That's the average. Let's look at 5. So in 5 years, the cumulative increases that we've put in for dues have been 19%. So if you take 2022 through the proposed 2026, 19% increase. If we just take the last 5 years and look at inflation, 21 to 25, it's been 23%. We've increased our dues by 19%. Inflation has gone up by 23%. I'm not doing that to pat ourselves on the back, but I'm just trying to, I want you to understand that we do this in a way, we are impacted by that 23%, but we're trying to do the best that we can to keep the dues down, the dues increases down. But the costs go up. They just do, okay? So we're doing our best to try to lessen the impact of our dues increases, but we're staring down the barrel at 23%, okay? So we are doing the best we can, and we know it's a sensitive thing, okay? We've got to watch out for we have various ranges of community members in our community, and we know that. And we have people that want us to increase the dues more because they want a restaurant, and they want a covered pickleball, and they want an air-conditioned, they want cover over the lawn bowling thing. There's a lot of things that people want, okay? We've got a range from everything, okay? We have to do what's right for the community as a whole, All right, that's what we're looking out for, and that's what we're tasked with. That's what the bylaws direct us to do. So that's what we're trying to do when we look at dues increases. We're trying to make sure that we do that. Now, let's compare ourselves. One of the biggest things is we have to be competitive because we're not the only retirement community out there. We're probably one of the only ones that's going to have 7 golf courses and 4 rec centers, that's for sure. But we have to make sure that we're competitive. So let's compare ourselves to the competition. All right, now these communities charge per rooftop. So when you look at their annual dues, it is per rooftop. We charge per member. But if you take our members, we have about 1.7 members per rooftop. So you can't just double the due that you see there at 598. That's not what we collect. We collect about 598 times 1.7 per rooftop. We got about 17,500 rooftops in our community. So that's what we collect. You might note that none of these other communities are on the top 10 55 plus communities in the country. But we are. So that's an important note as well. But you could see dues increases that have been put in. If you're a single person and you live in Sun City West, your dues are less than you would pay if you lived in Sun City. You'd pay $598. In Sun City, you'd pay $650. So that's another important thing. Okay. If you're a single person, okay, that's what I meant. So anyway, so that's something as well. Okay, so just something to think about. You can, and when I'm done, you come on. Yep. So just want to point that out too. Okay, but again, when Del Webb built Sun City West, he built it with the same amount of amenities with half the homes. He did that on purpose. Okay, so half the homes, same amount of amenities, it's going to cost more. That's the way it is. Okay, so that's why they built this place. They wanted it to be more exclusive, and it is more exclusive. But I say we're pretty competitive. The value you get for $598 compared to what you get with these other communities. And I know you know it. That's why you're here. So just wanted to finish with this slide because, again, I think it's important. And this is part of what we budget for as well, to make sure that we are world-class and one of the best. So with that said, that completes the financial presentation. I'll turn it over to Mr. Erno.
Great. Thank you, Cliff, and thank you all for your contribution to the presentation tonight. And I want to give a special thanks to Cliff and his team. You know, there's a lot of work that goes into behind the scenes to putting together the numbers, figuring out what needs to happen in order to make things work. And they've done a phenomenal job. So thank you, Cliff, and your team. And thank you to all the managers for going through this process with us and making sure that we have put together a really sound budget for the coming year so we can continue to provide those amenities to you that you come to expect. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions you guys may have, or I or the team. Please come to the microphone for us, please.
I would like to speak for all of the people in Sun City West that work in the 55 to 65 age group. I don't appreciate paying dues and not being able to use all your services because you call yourselves a retirement community. That being said, I don't mind some of my money going to support things, but we would just like the opportunity to be able to participate in them. Instead of Sun City West coming to expect to take our money for 10 years. I do not think that is right. And that has been going on since I moved into this community 3 years ago.
Great. Well, you know, listen, I mean, the great thing about this community is there is something for everybody. There are events and things that take place.
There are events, but your events and stuff are not made for people who work. They are made for retirement people, and so I have to.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Hi. My first comment is Pat O'Hara and his group at the golf course do an excellent job in assisting residents when they have a medical emergency. They're outstanding. But we have other issues with our poor maintenance in Sun City West. The Kuntz tennis courts have been in need of repair for 4 years. When people purchase property in Sun City West, they are not advised that all property will not be properly maintained. Which person on the payroll is responsible for not having all the property on Sun City West repaired? Is it, Steve, are you the responsible?
Well, ultimately, I'm responsible for everything, of course, yes.
You are responsible?
Well, I'm responsible as a general manager, I'm responsible for the entire organization.
So you're responsible for the Kuntz tennis courts not being repaired, basically?
From the time since September 3rd of last year till now, I suppose, yes.
Okay.
From my understanding, having, since being here, is that there's been a lot of discussion and debate about what to do with the Kuntz tennis courts. And that still remains to be determined as to what exactly the future of that facility is.
I think due to the fact we purchased 20 years ago, we were never informed that all property would not be maintained as it was when we purchased it. We are getting more and more residents with legal insurance. And I would like to know who would they need to press charges against if they decided to go to court and use their legal insurance. So from this, I would take it you are the one.
Well, the rec centers, of course, if somebody wanted to bring some sort of legal action, they would bring legal action against the rec centers of Sun City West as an organization.
But as far as the person on the payroll,
There is nobody on the payroll that's going to be held personally liable for anything like that. It's going to be the rec centers, which is why, Cliff talked about the cost of our insurance. That's our liability insurance. We have recreation center attorneys that would represent us in such an action. But there would not be an individual that would be personally held liable for any kind of claim of action against that a member might have for some claim of lack of maintenance.
so basically it would be back to the homeowners of its liability insurance.
It would be defended by our attorneys and would be looked at through our risk management and through our risk attorney and through our insurance that we have.
Because according to our cardiologists that we have on property, tennis is the most heart-healthy sport we have on property. And heart disease is the #1 killer of men and women in the United States. So I think it's extremely important, with all the money we have in reserve and all these things, that everything on property be maintained and repaired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank Bagnotto, 117-679. Good evening, members of management, as well as the handful of board members that are here. For a bit of background, I spent 16 years doing financial statement analysis for one of the largest investment banks in the world. As assistant vice president and deputy credit manager, I had single signature authority of over $5 million in today's dollars, and I understand financial statements on a very deep level. There's something amiss with our operating budget and profit and loss, and it needs to be fixed before the start of the next budget cycle. For reasons that have not been explained, as of the end of February, the latest date financials are available, the amount spent on wages and benefits is $500,000 less than budgeted, and that occurred in just 8 months. By some measure, this could be good news, but not for the residents. That's about $18 per resident that's included in our dues. It hasn't been used to pay anyone's salary, which is what it's supposed to be for, and it is certain to increase even further over the next 4 months. I believe the reason this money isn't spent as intended is the number of open positions in the rec center. From July of '24 through October, there were consistently 12 or 13 open positions each month. Then the number jumps dramatically, and openings have averaged about 20 per month since then. These are people whose salaries have been budgeted for but have not been hired. Some are seasonal requests for golf and landscape maintenance workers, along with the constant need for facilities assistance. The point here is that almost as a rule, we will go an entire year without filling many of these openings New ones may appear and old ones go away as people quit or are hired. But to budget for all of these positions year after year, knowing a portion of them will never be filled, is borderline unethical. It is a practice that a certified accountant might not be comfortable with, and Arizona Revised Statute 10-11601 specifically frowns on. Do the right thing. Rebate these unspent funds back to the residents via a reduction in the request for dues budgeted next year. Then reduce the budgeted number for wages and benefits for next year, and your profit and loss statement is covered, including expected contributions to the reserve fund. This simple adjustment will go a long way towards winning over the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello.
I'm Bonnie Miller. I'm new here, and I only have personal finance background, so bear with me. I was wondering, could you do me a favor, though, and refer back to your wages and inflation chart, if you don't mind? I want to thank you all for your help, your hard work. I know this is not an easy
Which
task,
one?
so commend you for that.
Sure.
Okay,
Just bear with us.
the chart, yeah.
Oh, like the
Okay.
second slide.
Okay, here it is. So based on the chart, looks to me as though wages are going down and inflation is leveling out. I know home prices are going down. I think we're about to go into a bit of a recession, but that nobody knows for sure. But based on your chart, it looks as though wages are decreasing. Am I not looking at that right?
No, those
And
are
inflation is leveling out?
no, the inflation, the wage increases are going down, but they're still going up. So these are wage increases. So just like
Okay, I'm
inflation.
just looking at the chart and the ways,
Yeah,
the arrows, and it looks
those
like
are
it
the
to me.
those are the minimum wage increases. In 2017, it was a 25% minimum wage increase, which was kind of a game changer, especially for an organization like this where a lot of your employees are tied to minimum wage. But it's just showing the increases every year and the trend on those increases. That's what this chart is showing. And then inflation, just like wage increases, once we do a wage increase, the next year it doesn't reset. We don't pull that wage increase back and then go, oh, it's only this much this year. It's built on top of the prior year. Just like inflation. When inflation goes down, you still have the inflation that was the prior year and the prior year before that. It's just going up at a lower rate. It's still up.
Okay, so,
But I could see how you would look at that and
yeah.
think it's coming down, but it's not.
Like
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
going the other way now.
Yeah.
And then you know that if you raise increase our fees $28 a year, we're going to be paying almost $1,000 by 2040 just in rec fees alone. You realize that, how you're raising them every year. And it sounds like the amount's going up yearly. It's not going to be 28, it's going to be more next year. So, you know, we're limited income, Social Security. You know, our Social Security doesn't go up that much. So I think that's a bit extreme personally. Also, insurance. Do you by chance shop around for insurance
Absolutely. Yep.
every year
Yep.
and try and find
Yeah,
the best deal on insurance?
Absolutely. The challenge we have is there's not a lot of carriers. When you think about all the insurance requirements that we have, there's not a ton of carriers that are lined up to insure us. So it's typically, just a couple of them, isn't it, pretty much?
Yeah, we actually switched. We've had Philly for I don't know how many years, but we actually went to market and we're going to go with Cincy this year. And but yeah, there's not many carriers. There's maybe 3 or 4 that would carry the type of insurance, you know, collectively to get buying power like we can. To cover the types of coverages that we have, all the various different types of coverages. We got insurance for our chemicals. We've got liability insurance, obviously, but we've got directors and officers insurance and employee practices insurance, and there's a myriad of insurances that we carry, automobile insurance, those types of things. But we work with brokers, and we utilize our buying power And obviously, like I talked about earlier, with the claims history that we have and the focus that we have on safety, we do a good job of keeping those rates and those increases down.
Okay, and am I understanding this correct, that you're saying that your surplus, your policy requires that you keep a 40% required in your surplus every year of your expenditure?
Yeah, it's not a
Is that what-
surplus,
am I
so it's in our reserve fund, we have to be 40% fully funded of our fully funded balance.
Because that's my next question. You have such a huge surplus. Why the increase?
We have $115 million in assets on our reserve study. We've got $30 million in the bank to pay for them.
Okay, and then you had mentioned Sun City, they increased their rec fees by 13% this year, but you didn't mention that they haven't raised them in many years prior to that. This is the first increase they've done in quite some time.
That's a great point, and when you look at the dues increases, every year where you don't do a dues increase, it's pay me now or pay me later. And it's much better to do them consistently throughout, because you get the time value of that money. But you can see here, even for us in 2022, 0, 2023, 12, 31, 30, 28. That's what happens when you don't have dues increases, because again, everything is subject. All of our costs, all of our reserve study assets are all subjected to inflation. And, it might feel good to have a 0 dues increase, but that's not the best thing. It really isn't.
Another question. Do any of you live here? Or all of you live here?
Here it
live
is.
here? Only one out of you? Okay. And then
We have 269 of our employees that live in Sun City West of our 490 employees.
And it seems that we're paying for a lot of events. Like most of the events we pay out money for. Like I said, I'm kind of new to this, so bear with me, but it just seems like we're paying for a lot in what we're getting. I mean, we basically get the gyms and the pools. And then you had mentioned that the golf and the library pretty much pays for themselves. I do.
I'm sorry, that's not correct. So golf is an amenity that's subsidized at about $1.1 million a year. So it costs the association about $1.1 million a year.
Okay.
Pools cost the association about the same.
And then speaking of pools, the RH pool is in pretty poor condition. Those cushions out there are just hideous. And the fountains, the calcium on those fountains are just, they look terrible. It's not as inviting as I think it could be, but just personal. And let's see, what else? Sorry, I got a lot to cover here.
Excuse me. I just wanted to answer the one about the calcium on the fountains. We're going to be dust blasting those here
Okay.
in the summer. So
Good.
that is going
And
to
that's an ongoing maintenance thing.
Yeah,
It's an ongoing,
Would it be
that's what you
cheaper
get.
just to do something different with it? Put some rocks or just do something that's gonna, because, Palm Ridge, you have the more modern rocks, and I used to have a pool, and I know we used to have to sandblast that stuff all the time. The
Yeah.
tile's just not a very efficient way to go. And then I'm just concerned by increasing the rec fees so much. I mean, it's going to be like property taxes. You're going to force seniors out of their homes at some point if you keep increasing every year like you do. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Lou Bonar, rec card number 126160. These numbers you're throwing around gives me a headache sometimes. But the one thing that kind of stood out to me is this reserve fund. Is that real money, $28 million in a reserve fund somewhere in a bank? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah.
Is that money making any money? Is that
Absolutely.
just sitting there?
No, it's making money.
It's making money.
Yep.
So where does it show up over here, how much it's making, and where is it being placed?
Sorry, let me go back. So you'll see investment income there. You see that line item at 981 and then modeled out at 880, 888, 5850. That's the investment income. Now we don't model out valuation changes. So any realized or unrealized gains or losses, we don't model those out, but all of that would be reflected within the actual reserve fund account.
And do you have access to this money if you needed it right away?
Yes, but the reserve fund is strictly for capital improvement projects. So
Okay.
we have an operating account that's robust enough to handle our full year budget. So our operating budget and our capital budget. We've got enough cash in our operating account to handle that.
All right.
And then we have an annual audit in August of every year. And then those financials are audited. And then after the audit, it confirms the amount that we either need to pull from our reserve fund or put into our reserve fund if we have excess or deficit after we pay for our capital improvement projects.
And we're mandated to put the 40% in there by some sort of charter agreement with Del Webb and the state of Arizona, or what?
It's a policy. That our policy is that our reserve fund should be at least 40% of our fully funded balance.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're mandated to, policy mandates us to fund that reserve fund with our excess income at the end of the year.
So this reserve fund is making money on our behalf. It's
Well,
just not
yes,
sitting there.
it's invested, okay?
All right.
It's invested, so
I mean,
investments
$28
are pretty
million
volatile right
can
now, but
generate
yes.
a lot of
Yes.
interest.
Yeah, it's at about 4% per year. We had a tough year in 2022 with it, okay? Fortunately, we don't need a lot of our cash. You can see we can fund it every year within $2 to $4 million, which is great because so then if we experience unrealized losses, we don't take those losses. So when we have volatility in the stock market, which we're having right now, the good thing is we don't have to sell those funds to pay because we have enough operating or cash inflows to pretty much fund a whole year's worth of operating expense and capital improvement.
And, on an unrelated topic, I heard you just mention that you were subsidizing the golf portion 1.2 million per year. It's losing 1.2 million per year. Why not just increase the golf fees or use some of this money from the interest to help subsidize that?
Well, yeah, so the interest on the reserve fund is only for capital improvement projects. So that's what the reserve fund is for, only capital improvement. So policy says you can't use your reserve fund for operations. So that's one.
Change of policy.
No, so and then the bylaws, well, it's a bylaw, but the deficit in golf is an amenity just like pools, just like the library, just like the lawn bowling courts, just like the billiards room. It's an amenity, okay? So it is subsidized. And if you build anything new in this community, you build a restaurant, guess what? It's going to be subsidized by the members. That's how we're set up. That's what we do. We're amenity based, and that's what we do. We're nonprofit, amenity based. So when someone buys here, they may buy here because we have 7 golf courses. Someone may buy here, they might not even like golf, but they love the view off their backyard. They got 7 parks in their community. It helps property values. There's a lot of benefits to golf, okay? We can't pick and choose which amenities the association has to pay for. We can't do that. They're all amenities. Every one of them.
I do understand that you don't have to go into the reserve fund to help subsidize the golf loss, but you can just increase the non-member fees. perhaps
We do.
the member fees. I don't know.
Which we did. He mentioned that on that one slide. We have it goes through the various committees. So we went through the golf committee to discuss the different fees, and they made their recommendation, and it worked its way up through to the governing board. So they are looked at, and that is part of the process, is to determine what the fee should be and how much subsidy should be included.
So as I understand it from previous budgets that I've seen over the years, I've been here about 15 years, approximately 25% of the population here in Sun City West play golf. And you're saying that is one of the primary reasons why people want to buy down here is because of the golf courses. And we have 7 golf courses. I think one of them is a private golf course.
No, all 7 of our courses are an amenity to all the members. So 100% of the members can use the golf courses.
Well, I thought there was one.
Well, Briarwood is not one of our golf courses,
But it's here in Sun City West, is it not?
but it's a private club. You have to buy
That's
in.
what I mean. So there's 8 courses, 9 courses, and 2 of them are private.
Correct.
So, yeah, and Portobello too. Well, that's not part of Sun City West, but I don't know. It seems to me like you might privatize a couple more golf courses.
Well, we never privatized those ones. Those weren't, that's not what was ever set up. So the 7 we have were the 7 that were originally.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah. Okay.
I know it. I know it. I'm just saying you can reduce a lot of these expenditures by making 2 of those golf courses, additional ones, private. Sell them. That's all. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got my water.
Good evening, Debbie Johnson. In most of our homes, we don't have a source to increase our revenue to meet expenses. Unlike Sun City West, who meets their expenses by raising dues and APF fees. We have to figure out how we're going to meet our expenses with the revenue we have. Sun City West is a fabulous community, no argument there. I think most residents want the same thing. We want the best community with the least impact to our income. This can only be accomplished by becoming a more efficient organization. So some of the questions I have, first, some clarification. On the 1.7 people per rooftop, does that include the tenants, the landlords, and the associate members?
Yes.
On the 420K allowance maintained in the, for your, let me start over. Is the 420K allowance maintained in a short-term interest-bearing account, or is that sitting with the investment?
That's in the reserve fund. So it's invested.
So it's not in a short term, it has to sit there, or when you withdraw that money, then we get charged for that, right? Yes?
Yeah, there's, it's not, we don't, when we charge against the reserve fund, we don't pull the money out at that time. We true up the reserve fund after the audit at the end of the year. That's when we do that. So it's not, we don't write a check out of that account to pay for a capital improvement item. We use the operating account to fund everything, and then we true the operating account up after the audited financial statements. That's the way the policy's written, how we do it.
On the employee uniforms, you only told us that it increased by 6,000. How much do we spend annually on uniforms? Include that 6,000.
Hang on, let me take that. That's attached. That's that attachment I told you about earlier, but I have a copy of it, so let me take a look. I don't know it off the top of my head. Sorry, getting there. Working on it. Okay, so our uniform expense in the budget is 53,801.
Now, mind you, that's not all T-shirts. You're talking about uniforms for folks that are out on the golf course.
Yeah,
that
there's
are
laundered uniforms.
laundered
and things like that.
uniforms. So you're talking about folks that when they those uniforms actually get laundered by us, because that's how you have to manage that. So it isn't that we're buying $53,000 worth of polo shirts, to be clear.
So it seems like it would be less expensive to give people name tags that have Sun City West on it than to provide a T-shirt or polo shirt or whatever it is they're wearing.
Well,
I mean, I'm just looking at, instead of coming to the people of this community and saying, give me more money because this is costing me more, we need to look at things that we can reduce the costs. And we aren't doing that. It's just too easy to come to the community and say, you're going to pay another $28 a year. And next year, you're going to pay another $30 a year. And the next year, you're going to pay another $40 a year. It's just too easy to do that. I think the community would feel okay if they saw that you were trying to reduce some of these expenses in some way.
So as Cliff mentioned earlier on the slide that talks about the different cost-saving measures, and he talked to that extensively in the beginning, we do that every single day. Every single day, our culture is about how do we get the most bang for the buck? How do we make sure that we are good stewards of our members' dues? That's exactly what we do. So he mentioned here these cost management highlights. This is just a few. If you go to the attachments, I don't know how many we have on there, but there's more. We, on a regular basis, that's all we do. So we made for example, Todd came to him and said, hey, if we buy all the fertilizer at once, we can save a substantial amount of money. Those are the things we're doing every single day. Every single day it is our culture to make sure that we are doing that. So we absolutely take that very seriously, and we don't take it lightly. We don't just come to the community and say, hey, we want to raise your dues. We are very sensitive to the fact that it does impact folks. Any dues increase does impact folks. We understand that. But we also have to make sure that we are being good stewards, and the governing board has a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility, as well as I do, to make sure that we are being good stewards of the money, and not just for today, but you think about folks 20, 30, 40 years ago, they are the ones that contributed and continue to contribute, some of them as well, to have the fact that we have such a healthy reserve, that we have a healthy fund and have the monies to do the things we do and maintain the community to the level that we have it. So when we're looking at things, we're not looking at it just for today. We are looking about how is this going to impact and make sure that this place is viable for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of the infinity, whatever that is. So I understand. I agree with you completely. It is a very sensitive thing, and I'm fully on board with that, and I don't take it lightly. It weighs on me. However, I have to look at the big picture and what is it best for the community as a whole. When I say the community, not just the community of today, but the community of the future.
So another expense is Club Tracker. Club Tracker was established for space utilization. Is it meeting that expectation?
Specifically, I would say no.
I would have to agree.
Yeah, and that's one of the
yet,
things
year
we're looking
after
at.
year, we keep throwing money at Club Tracker. There's another place that we can easily reduce expense. I mean, the little bit here and a little bit there is helpful. It's not necessarily, you know, the $1 million here and $1 million there, but it all adds up if you just look at even the small things like that.
No, I agree. And to be clear, the question was, is it meeting the needs of space utilization? The answer, I would say no. Does it have a purpose? Absolutely it does. It does provide us valuable data that is, but it needs to be enhanced. And we're looking at that as one of the things through our IT that we want to look at is is that the best system going forward? But for right now, it's the only system we have, and it does provide valuable data to us as to the usage of the rooms. Is it the best? No. So that was my agreement is it providing us exactly what we'd like? No, it's not. So, but we are looking at what that looks like in the future.
Just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the expense of it and what you're getting from it, it's not justifying the means. That's just my opinion on that. I know you like to throw up the surveys, and the retire better now factors, they base that rating on the amenities, the affordability, the proximity, location to things like medical, lifestyle, shopping, cultural attractions. That's what they're basing their rating on. And we aren't necessarily number 4 in that rating. They don't put it up there by what the rating is. They're just grading according to those factors.
Listen, I'll take top 10 any day, though.
That means we could be number 1.
We
Right.
could
Yeah,
be.
good point.
Just don't know.
We could be number 1.
We are number 1, as far as I'm concerned.
And on the pay factors survey, did that include nonprofit organizations?
Yes.
For example, you can't compare government jobs to Buc-ee's and Panda Express, so it does take in nonprofit organizations specifically.
It's all industries. So there can be nonprofits, there could be for-profits, but it's all industries that have matching job descriptions. Not titles, but job descriptions.
Right, I understand the job descriptions, but we also know that I worked for the government. I didn't get paid what the person who worked in private industry got paid for the same position doing exactly the same thing. So the same occurrence is with nonprofits. You aren't necessarily going to get paid the same amount as a private profit-making business.
Correct.
Also, what types and levels of positions are in your 12% graph? Does that include all of upper management, middle management, and your lower wage grade employees?
All positions.
Okay, so we all know it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that if you have higher paid people and you have lower paid people who are actually the ones who are probably underpaid, that's going to bring your percentage to not, it doesn't reflect the accurate percentage. If you broke it down by upper management, okay, that's compared with upper management. Your middle level supervisors would also be compared
We're
equally.
less. We're further away from the average wage the more higher skilled positions you go up. So you're correct, but we're actually the lower skilled positions are more in line than the higher skilled positions.
It would be really great to see that. Also, your comparison with Buc-ee's and Panda Express, RCSCW management doesn't work weekends, which if you work at Panda or Buc-ee's, even if you're upper management, you're going to probably be working odd hours and working holidays and weekends. You're also, your lower wage people are geared primarily to part-time. And many of those employees may not even work 20 hours a week.
Todd, Pat, how many managers and supervisors do you have that work on the weekends?
We have the superintendents, we have the 6 superintendents, the assistant superintendents, and the whole staff. We work 7 days a week. We work holidays. There's one day off during the year that we don't work, and that's Christmas.
Okay, so maybe that one does, but what about your admin people? Admin isn't. I mean, you were comparing admin positions on Buc-ee's and Panda. You weren't comparing.
I was comparing the laborers, actually. I wasn't really
The
comparing.
primary focus of that was saying the unskilled labor for someone who can dish out rice bowls and what they're paying for that compared to the unskilled labor that we need. That's our competition. We're just making it clear that the competition out there in the labor force is real, and oftentimes there's this mindset that we only need to look at the other, at the Grand or Sun City to compare ourselves. And the reality is, no, for labor, yes, while we're blessed to have many of our members or employees are also community members, there is a fair amount of them that are not. And we have to get those skilled and unskilled laborers have to come from the outside of the walls. And we are competing with everybody in the valley outside of the walls. And, providing that was simply providing some context as to what we're up against.
So one of the perks of working at Sun City West is that you get use of the facilities, am I correct?
Correct.
Do they get free golf?
We don't get free golf.
Yeah, golf is in,
Oh,
yes.
do we? Oh,
You
oh, I'm
do.
sorry for those.
So Buc-ee's and Panda's not offering that.
Yes, and that is definitely a perk, for, especially for employees that live in the community. Absolutely.
And that's one of the things we talked about, is it's not about just the wage. We have a fantastic culture. We have other benefits that are in there. And so no one's arguing that there's that it's not just the wage. It's not just about the wage. Again, the point was simply stating that when we're looking at labor for many positions, that we are not just looking within the walls or looking at Sun City or Sun City Grand. We have to compete with the labor market as a whole.
Do we have employees that have a company vehicle?
We have 2 employees that have a company vehicle.
Do you think Panda and Buc-ee's gives their managers vehicles?
I don't know whether they do or not.
No, I
Probably
don't think
not.
they do.
Well, you know what? I don't know. You could have a manager that's on call that has to respond to an after-hours emergency, perhaps. I don't know. But I would venture to guess you're correct. They're probably not. But I don't know. I'm not going to speak for them. Again, we're getting down into the details of some of that, you know, again, the context was all we were trying to provide there as to what we are up against when we're looking at the labor force and what we have to pay.
And as an owner member, I'm looking at the things that we could probably reduce. Because how many times has a manager been called out in the last year?
Russ, how many times have you been called out? Twice in the last year.
Todd, how many times you been out? Our 2 employees that have company vehicles, 30-year employees that are in charge of all the facilities here.
Yeah, over
So
the last
2
year.
times in a year?
Yeah, probably
They get a
50
company vehicle
Yeah,
or
probably
2
here.
times?
Yeah, probably 15 or 20 times.
Russ has had twice. You're saying 15 to 20. The expectation is that Russ is to respond if there's something, if a water main broke at 2 in the morning. I don't want Russ to have to drive here, get a different vehicle, and go to that water main break. Providing a company paid vehicle to 2 employees that are responsible for the facilities 24/7, 365. That's a reasonable thing to provide to them.
Another thing that we can look at, has anybody researched having solar? Our utilities are 10% of our cost. When's the last time we've researched solar to offset that cost?
We are currently in that process. That's one of the items.
Cool.
That is one of the items on the strategic plan.
Okay, and then on the master plan, I know we have, what is it, 225,000 set as a placeholder, 250, as a placeholder for having a company come out and ask questions of the population, correct?
A lot more than that. It's not just asking questions. It's a lot of data gathering and a lot of community input. It's providing a website, a social media type interactive website, as well as mapping, as well as multiple community engagement meetings, stakeholder meetings, gathering data on what is the next generation of retirees looking for in a retirement community so we can stay relevant. It is quite a bit more than just simply asking some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, my pleasure, absolutely, thank you. Sure, no, please, welcome.
I might get booed after this, so I'm getting close to the door. But I know you got a lot of employees that just literally just scan my card. You ever considered AI for that? I mean, doesn't take a lot just to scan a card. Just a thought. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Arno, and on a bright note, thank you very much for your forbearance tonight. You've all received spears in the chest, undeserved, but thank you very much.
Okay.
Press on that master plan. That is absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. One question for Cliff. On the reserve study, how old is our reserve study? And are we due for another one?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that question? I didn't hear.
The reserve study.
Yeah.
How old is it?
How old is it?
How old is it? And are we due for another one?
We keep our reserve study daily. We don't send it out to a firm to, we do send it out once a year to have them review it, but our reserve study and all of our assets are kept up on a daily basis.
Thank you. That's a good answer. I like that. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Dave DeWitt, 141268. I'm here to give you guys a little bit of love. I've been here in the community. We bought a home in December 2022, so almost 3 years. I've been following budget and finance ever since we bought the home. I've been watching all the monthly meetings online. I attend a lot of the monthly meetings. And I just want to say, from my perspective, you guys do a fantastic job with all the finances in this community. I've been in a similar industry for almost 35 years, golf industry, as a CFO for a long time. So I know what it takes. And I just want to let all you guys know that you're doing a great job. If I have to pay $598 per person, I'm happy. I would pay $15.98 per person, and I'd still be happy. The amenities here are unbelievable, unbelievable. So I just want to thank you guys and then let you know that you have a lot of support. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do want to mention, listen, I don't ever take any comments in any sort of negative way. I appreciate your comments and your questions. I really do. I mean, it's your community. There's no reason why you shouldn't be asking those questions and asking the hard questions. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. We always appreciate the positive stuff. I don't even take that as negative. But it's just, it's fine. That's how it is. And you know, and we want to hear the feedback. We want you folks to be here. We're glad. I'm thrilled to see the turnout that we have here tonight. So I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments before we close out? Really, I'm so happy to see you all here tonight. Thank you so much for everything, and we'll see you next time. And thanks so much.
We're available.